I looked at the spec sheet and at first it seems like a noticeable downgrade from what you would normally be used to, but let's actually talk about it. Now I'm going to divide this video into three. I'll talk about the specs, then I'll talk about the screen, and lastly I'll talk about the design, because the design is something that I just want to talk about it a little. So let's get straight into it. Now, the first and most noticeable thing about the Poco X3 GT is the fact that it now uses the Dimensity 1100 5G, which is supposed to give the phone 5G. Now, I want to praise Poco for finally including a Dimensity chip in their lineup. I've wanted to see Dimensity chips in phones, and now that they are slowly getting seeded out to various parts of the world, we'll start to see more of these chips, and hopefully these chips will bring good performance and actually bring a good name to MediaTek, which is what I actually want. Now, aside from the fact that it comes with a Dimensity chip, it's also backed up with 8 gigs of RAM, and it starts at 128 gigs of internal storage or 256 gigs of internal storage, which is actually pretty decent. I'm fine with that. 8 gigs of RAM is a lot, and this is supposed to be a gaming phone, hence the name GT. People say that this is sort of a downgrade, first of all because everyone is mostly used to Snapdragon being the better chip. So when you say you've stepped down from Snapdragon to MediaTek, it seems like a problem, but I don't actually have a problem with that. I think it's a fine decision because, like I've already said before, I want to see more MediaTek chips out in the wild. The more MediaTek chips we get and the better their performance, the better Snapdragon itself will get. And as we already know, competition always breeds innovation. So that is actually very welcome. The next spec that is actually very interesting is the battery. Now, compared to the Poco X3 Pro, which comes with a 5160 mAh battery, this comes with just a regular 5000 mAh battery. Some people are getting ready to flare up. More level-headed people are thinking 160 mAh isn't really that much. So, here's the differentiating factor between these two phones. The Poco X3 Pro came with 33 watts fast charging, as opposed to this GT, which comes with 67 watts charging. So it makes up for that lost battery capacity, which is actually not even much. Some people may not notice it, but it would have been good if they were able to keep the 160 mAh that they removed and also increase the battery charging speeds. But I don't have a problem here, so the battery is definitely not a downgrade. The next spec is the cameras. So this comes with triple cameras as opposed to the quadruple cameras that you get on the Poco X3 Pro. It comes with a 64 megapixel main camera, which is a step up from the 48 megapixels that you get on the Poco X3 Pro. It comes with an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera and a 2 megapixel macro lens. So, is this a downgrade from what we got on the Poco X3 Pro? Not at all. I'm actually fine with the fact that they reduced the camera count, because adding useless cameras that people may not use is... I'm not going to go over this again. So, even in the camera department, it's also not a downgrade. The only noticeable downgrade in the cameras will be the selfie camera, which is now a 16 megapixel selfie camera as opposed to the 20 megapixels that you get on the Poco X3 Pro. But do people really care that much about selfies? Like, I'm not a selfie freak. I know people who are selfie freaks. I don't think they would notice that 4 megapixels are missing from their camera. If you're a selfie freak, let me know if you would actually miss it, but I'm definitely sure I wouldn't care. Since the camera isn't a downgrade, the battery doesn't seem to be a downgrade, the specs of the phone don't seem to be a downgrade, then why do people seem to say that the Poco X3 Pro is a better buy than the GT. The first thing you will notice is there is no micro SD card slot. Now, this hit me very hard because, first of all, why? This is not something I expect from Xiaomi or the sub-brand of Xiaomi. This is something you should expect from Samsung and the like. And this phone doesn't even pass the $500 mark, so I don't even see why they should do that. But it is here. It has dual SIMs that both support 5G, but it doesn't have a micro SD card slot. And then to back it all up, it only comes with a highest of 256 gigs of internal storage. Now, personally, I know that 256 gigs of internal storage is pointless because I can finish up 256 gigs of internal storage in less than 6 months if I am really trying. But then there are people out there in the world who don't actually use up to 64 gigs of internal storage. So getting the 128 gig variant may not be a problem. If you're a performance tank like me, then that's not good. Then this will be a very noticeable downgrade. But then it's not something you should really put off the GT for. But the thing that ground my gears is the fact that it doesn't come with a headphone jack. Why? No, seriously, Poco, I want to know why the Poco X3 Pro had it, and this GT is supposed to be a gaming phone. How do you have gaming in your target demographic and still not have a headphone jack? Or did you suddenly forget that gamers do not tolerate any form of lag in their gameplay? I don't understand Poco's thought process when they were actually doing this. It's a very, very bad downgrade. If you really want to game, it does come with a headphone jack to USB-C dongle in the box, which is fine. And if you want to charge your phone while gaming, you can just buy those adapters that allow you to do that. But I still think that Poco should have removed it. But at least when they did that, they added stereo speakers to the phone, which is fine, I guess. I don't get why they did this. I don't like the fact that they removed the headphone jack. The headphone jack was awesome. Like, you don't remove that if you want to target your phone to gamers. It's literally a red flag to most of us, unless there are casual gamers out there who don't actually care about the lag. But I will say this, the phone comes with Bluetooth 5.2, which brings latency of Bluetooth earbuds and headphones down to the absolute minimum that we can go to right now with our technology. So the latency may not be that much, but there is still latency, and I personally do not tolerate latency of any phone. Even a millisecond of latency can be detrimental to my gameplay. My preferences may vary, I don't know about yours, but let me know in the comments. Do you prefer having wireless earbuds to play games, or would you rather be the old guys and go with a wired headphone? I'm actually quite curious to know. Now, the next important thing is the screen. This comes with a 6.6 inch screen, which is not actually different from the 6.67 inches that you get on the Poco X3 Pro. Both have IPS LCD screens and both refresh at 120 Hz. Now, the only difference between these two is this one comes with Gorilla Glass Victus. Translation, it doesn't scratch easily, but it will definitely break easily. But of course, I believe that anyone who is going to buy any phone like this has already made up their mind to be very careful when they are using their phones. So, I don't think you should be worried about it breaking. But it's just information for you to know. The screen isn't a downgrade at all. I'm actually fine with the screen. Now, the design, that was the last thing I said I was going to talk about. Is it just me, or does this phone look eerily very similar to a phone I literally just talked about in a video just a little while back? I mean, this phone just looks like the Redmi Note 10 Pro. But then someone went into Photoshop, pressed Ctrl T, grabbed the x-axis and just dragged it out without actually pressing Alt and Shift or Shift, and boom, you have your phone. I don't know. I like looking at this design and looking back at what the Redmi Note 10 Pro was. I actually prefer the Redmi Note 10 Pro's design. It's much more, I don't know, there's something about it that makes it more elegant. But this is just my personal preference. There are other people out there who may actually think differently, or some people who would not want any form of a camera square at all. I know there are people like that out there. So, in conclusion, is the Poco X3 GT a downgrade? It's not actually. I mean, it's missing a few core features that people who are supposed to be gamers need. Micro SD card, because if you're going to be a gamer, that means you're also going to be watching a lot of videos and downloading a lot of videos and all of that. It's missing a headphone jack, but then they make up for it with Bluetooth 5.2, so I guess I can't complain too much about that. And that's literally all. Like, those are the main downgrades that make you feel like this GT is not worth it. But they're not things that you should say don't get the GT for. If you had your eyes on the X3 Pro, just weigh these two things I talked about: the lack of micro SD card expansion and the lack of the headphone jack. If you think you can do without the headphone jack and also the SD card slot, just go for the GT. You'll be fine. If you think that you can't, go for the X3 Pro. Plus, the X3 Pro is cheaper than the GT. It's totally your choice. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. See ya!